Gray. Welcome to Totum Talks. With me today is my colleague Gary Jones, Sally Prokopis, who is the Divisional Business Manager at Linklaters for the finance practice, and Matthew Doyle, who is the General Manager for the UK for Latham & Watkins. Today we're going to be discussing the evolving role of management in law firms. Interestingly, both Sally and Matthew come from outside of the legal sector. This was your first foray into the legal sector. So it'd be really interesting to see how your role differs in your current role than it did to the previous roles you had. Sally, perhaps we can start with you.
I think the biggest difference is the partnership model. I came most recently from the sort of cusp of the public sector and the voluntary sector, and we had very strict non-executive board and executive team, with the non-executive board obviously setting strategic direction and the executive team getting on and doing it. In the partnership model, which I find myself now, it's completely different. 450 owners of the firm, and just adjusting to that situation where they feel that they want to be as involved in management as I am, and not having quite that same level of autonomy.
Do you find it harder for decisions to be made because there are 450 people to be dealing with?
Definitely. Less efficient.
Yeah.
Okay. More people to deal with.
And Matthew, how have you found it?
Well, I come from Big Four accounting,
Yeah.
so the partnership structure isn't different for me. But what I have found very different is the way that the scope of general management hasn't evolved in the legal profession as substantially as it has in the accounting industry. Okay.
How do you feel your role is accepted in the legal world then?
I think it's a growing acceptance.
Okay.
I think that when you look at the legal sector as a whole, it's still maturing. When compared to the Big Four accountancy firms. So I think that there is an acceptance across the industry that they need to be doing things better, and they need to be bringing in professional managers to actually manage the business while they can focus on client work.
Okay. And do you find that acceptance within Latham & Watkins evolving as well? Are you having to change that?
I think it's the way it's evolving within Latham is I think that there has been an acceptance, and there's been an acceptance for a number of years of the need for professional management. But what's evolving is the input and the empowerment around the strategy of the organisation.
Okay. And so, do you find that you're becoming more empowered as you're there longer, or?
Yeah. I mean, I was interested in Linklaters because it has accepted the business manager concept and did so, well, has done for many years. So as a role, we are accepted, but inevitably it takes a while to become personally accepted, and the longer you're there and the more people you interact with and the more you hopefully impress them, the more empowerment that you get. So much of it is about your personal impact and being able to influence partners individually.
And on a day-to-day basis, how do you find your role is evolving, if it is? I suppose it is.
Well, I'm sure it's the same for you. I mean, my role just changes daily. I mean, the pace of change is just phenomenal, and there are lots of reasons for that. But it's mostly reflecting what's going on outside, and just our need to keep up with the current tough economic conditions, our competitors, revenue generation, finding efficiencies. There is constantly something new to do, so it's a very fast-paced role, which is great.
Is there one area that you are getting involved in recently that more so than ever?
Efficiency finding, undoubtedly. I mean, there's both we need to help the partners create more revenue, but individually, as business managers, we are focused particularly on finding efficiencies everywhere in the business services support model. Which is quite a challenge.
Yeah. And do you get the same sort of acceptance from other business services directors or individuals as you do now from some of the fee earners and partners?
Definitely. I think business services staff are generally more accepting of where we are as a firm and where the economy is and what we have to do to react. So we're all in the ship together, trying to find efficiencies together. So yeah, definitely.
And Matthew, what do you think are going to be the main challenges for you going forward in this general management role?
I think that the biggest challenge is people management. I think that we are continuing to evolve how we actually use our non-fee earning staff to support the partnership. and that's creating a more complex business for us. So it's how do we manage those additional complexities, it's how do we manage those people, how do we develop those people, how do we get the partnership to accept and the fee earners to accept those people actually taking responsibilities off them that they have historically had. I think secondly, regulation for us is a big issue, and how we respond to the changes in regulation. And I think the third for us is around the growing global economy. Most of the work that we do out of London is actually cross-border, and that in itself brings additional complexities and management layers that we need to be continually working on and continually focused on.
I was going to say people as well, but the other side of people in terms of the practice, and helping the partnership model evolve, because there's increasing pressure on the model, whether it's equity, non-equity.
So Sally, you mentioned one of the challenges being people as well.
Yeah, so in the same way as Matthew was talking about people management on the business services side, for us, well, for you as well, I'm sure, it's managing the people, evolving the people strategy on the practice side, because the pressure on partnership is increasing. We need to help plan the careers of our partners, both at the senior end and the junior end, and we have associates coming through, and it's more difficult to make partnership these days, so we need to think about their careers, how to motivate them, retain them, manage work-life balance, all of those issues.
We're certainly noticing more and more of these roles coming into the legal market, as you've just discussed as well. What do you think people need, what characteristics do you think people need to have to be successful in these sorts of roles?
I mean, as we talked about, having all those owners, all those people to influence, more than anything, being able to influence them. And that's, I mean, lawyers have a very high threshold of, they expect everybody in their firm to be sufficiently intelligent to be there, so that's taken as read. And thereafter it's the sophistication of your communication skills, really. It is a people business in such an obvious way. I mean, it is just all about people and your relationships.
Can I just ask, when knowing that and experiencing that, when you now look for people yourself, I mean, how do you test that relationship ability?
They're imagining them in front of your most difficult partners, and how quickly they would build credibility. It's all about building credibility as quickly as possible, so that you can then go on to do what you want to do and start bossing them around.
We actually put them in front of our most difficult partners as part of the interview process. And because credibility is one of those things that you start on the front foot in the first 10 seconds, or you're in the back foot for the entire time. So where it is going to be a partner-facing role, we very early on get the partners involved in the process.
And going back to your out-of-sector experience in professional services, is it harder in a law firm to get that relationship built with a senior partner than your previous experience?
I think lawyers are very judgmental, which is part of their role. They reach conclusions quickly and normally quite accurately, but there's very little scope for, one wrong foot. It's very difficult to go backwards. So I think it's a very judgmental environment. I've never been so aware of having to manage my brand and my every bit of communication.
And do you think it helps that you've both come from, whilst it wasn't a law firm, both come from, you've had experience within big partnership environments? Do you think that's helped you in this role?
Definitely, I think so. I think people who come to one of these roles without that partnership experience will spend the first 6 to 9 months just learning the partnership model and learning, as you were saying, how do you operate in an environment where there are 300-400 owners sitting in the business who are all expecting to be able to have a say in their day-to-day running.
On the other hand, most of the partners and lawyers in our firms only know that concept and only know that model. So I think it's invaluable to come with experience of a different sector or a different type of environment, because gives you more confidence to try it out on them.
I also think that coming from different sectors means that you're bringing new concepts. And I think that's been one of the things that's been successful for me, has been bringing the new concepts that haven't been in the legal sector before.
And all the new concepts listened to, people talk about lawyers being very meritocratic. They'll judge your new idea based on its merit either way. Is that true in reality?
My experience is that they're very open to new ideas. there is a understanding in a range of different areas that the legal profession is ahead of the curve in relation to other professional services, but there's also an understanding that in some areas that it's well behind the curve. And people understand that, and they're eager to improve where we need to improve.
Thank you very much. That was really interesting, and obviously the answers to these questions show how law firm management is evolving. Look forward to seeing you at the next Totum Talk.